Greetings and blessings, butterflies. Welcome back. I'm Famous Diamore, and I'm here with another episode of Cocoon Conversations. The topic of this conversation for today is going to be abandonment wounds. And I want to start off by saying that the reason that this is the conversation for today, I've been Spirit has been putting this conversation in my heart all week. So, well, I wouldn't say the conversation, just the topic. The topic has been on my mind all week. I've been seeing, I've been seeing patterns of it showing up, in people and situations around me, and I understand how at times it could be reflective, when you notice certain things. Sometimes that those things are reflective of things that you might be healing or working on. And so it may be reflective to remind you to continue your healing, or it may be reflective to alert you of the healing that you need to be, you know, working on for yourself. So I have had my own shares of abandonment wounds. So I know about this energy personally. So there are things that I've had to do to work on this wound. And it's not, I'm not going to sit here and claim that it's a wound that I have completely healed because of, my early environment and me being, of an age. Nothing is impossible. I'm not saying that. But just because of those factors, certain things are learned behaviors, or they become habits that you may not have realized that you previously had. So I'm going to always be working on and maintaining my consciousness about the fact that I do have abandonment wounds. So I want to have this conversation for anyone else out there who may be going through the same thing, who may also have wounds around abandonment. Greetings, Jeff. Welcome in. Welcome in. Who also may have, wounding around areas of feeling abandoned, maybe not feeling good enough, being afraid of losing people, those type of things. So I want to be able to provide others with the understanding of what it is and how we can maneuver and cycle through these types of energies. Greetings, Benjamin, and I think that says Tate. Greetings. If I'm flowing in the conversation and I don't notice you guys coming in, don't blame it hard. Just, understand that I'm, just trying to flow the conversation and just being led by spirit at the moment. So I first want to just talk about what abandonment wounds are, first and foremost. Because many of us might not even realize that we have abandonment wounds because we don't even know what they are. So I want to discuss what they look like, how they show up for you. What can you do? All those type of things. When you realize that you may be dealing with wounds of abandonment. Thanks. It's reading fine. I appreciate you, Tate. I don't really know what you mean by it's reading fine, but I appreciate you for being here. Hopefully, you get some information here that you feel that is beneficial to you, something that you can use for your healing process as well. We are healing. I don't care who you are. So that's not a stab or a jab at you or anything like that, or implying that you're a broken person. That's just part of the human experience. And so if you embrace and accept that, then you'll always be at peace, and you'll always be open to understanding and embracing the help and the support that you may have available around you. So, first and foremost, abandonment wounds, they usually form when our emotional or our physical needs for love, safety, and the idea of present, having someone present when it goes unmet. So it's not always about someone literally walking away from us. Sometimes it's about feeling unseen. Sometimes it's about feeling unheard. Sometimes it's us just feeling unimportant, even when we still have people around. So that goes to show you that abandonment wounds, it doesn't just show up when somebody leaves us, when we have a breakup, or when we experience death or things like that, when someone move away. That's not the only time that we experience wounds from abandonment. We experience, and we could have tons of people around us. If we're in the energy of feeling like our voice isn't being heard, that's an abandonment wound. If we're in the energy of feeling like that we're not being seen, we're not showing up the way that we expect people to see us, people not seeing us the way that we're showing up, people are misinterpreting and misunderstanding our presence, that's an abandonment wound. If you're around people and you feel like you're unimportant, if you feel like the things that you have to say matter, if you feel like just you being there isn't important enough, that's an abandonment wound. And so usually these abandonment wounds, they start in our childhood. I know, if I can say for myself, that's when I did the dark night of the soul walk. When I went within and looked at things, it went all the way back to my childhood. I went back and I realized that I unconsciously, I didn't realize as I moved and progressed throughout my life. But during certain situations, during certain points in my life, I would make decisions. I would unconsciously make a decision and follow that decision, you know what I'm saying, the rest of, my life. That would become how I operated, how I behaved, how I showed up. And I wasn't thinking about it as deeply as, okay, well, just let's say, for instance, a decision that I just want to think of a decision that I made as a child that I didn't realize I was making that was going to impact me as I kept progressing through adulthood. Um, like the decision that, okay, when I was younger, um, I was, going through some issues where I felt like I wasn't being seen, properly. I felt like, I was unheard. So I made the decision that I would always, try to make sure that people recognize that, I'm worthy, that I'm a person that can be helpful, that I'm a person who will be there for them, because that was something that I didn't feel like I had. So I made the decision to try to be that person for other people. And when I made that decision, am I trolling? No, ma'am or sir, I'm not trolling. But anyway, um, I would make those decisions. I made that decision not realizing that I would be, giving my power away in many situations because of the decision that I made. Because I told myself that I was going to be that for everybody. That I was going to be that person that showed up for them. I was going to be that person that heard them. I was going to be that person that made them feel important. And I'm not saying that that's a terrible thing, but the impact, the emphasis that I put within myself on that decision, I made the decision to heal the wound that I already had, because I already felt that way. And I was using that method to try to heal that wound. And that wasn't the way. So sometimes in childhood, these wounds can show up as, a caregiver or a parent, your guardian, whoever. It can show up as someone who's emotionally available. You could be having a parent or somebody who took care of you that's inconsistent, or they could, sometimes show up as unpredictable. You may not have been always prepared, especially when you're young and growing up and you're learning yourself in your learning environment. You may not have been prepared for some of the things that showed up in the people that you look up to that was taking care of you. And other times it shows up like where love, is given conditionally. You may have had somebody around you who you honored and admired, and they will give you love just based off of the conditions or what you could do for them. They wouldn't be, the love wouldn't be genuine because if you didn't do certain things, they wouldn't show you love. So this be based off of your performance or your behavior. What can what can you do for me? Or how there can you be for me? And I was giving that love to that promise that I made to myself of showing up for people. I was giving that unconditionally to people who was giving it back to me conditionally. Sometimes it can also show up as, when we go through things and we feel like nobody is there for us. I'm not talking about, small things like somebody hurt our feelings. I'm talking about big things like, the death of someone close to us, or going through a traumatic experience that changed, how we show up in the world, how we're perceived in the world. You may have went through some type of surgery that changed, how you're going to, operate out here in the world, how other people are going to handle you out here in the world. And you may have had to go through those experiences alone. You may have had people there comforting you and being supportive of you. And those are big emotions to have to deal with alone. That's the type of thing that creates abandonment wounds. My mom, who is well, she tried a little too much. Still can't get with the moving. And that's where you have to take responsibility. Any wounding that we have, even though someone else may have been, we may feel like someone else may be responsible for us having that wound because we may have felt neglected. We may have felt like, we may have felt like we were in unstable environments. But this is when we have to take responsibility for what they didn't do. At those times when we were going through those things, we had no way of taking responsibilities and, getting a hold on or taking control of that situation. We were under, being guided and, being taken care of by others. But when we reach certain points in our life and we realize that we're wounded around those certain areas, it's up to us to take responsibility to heal that. And we first got to not hold on to that. And I don't want to, promote giving, people that may have not shown up for us in the best way possible excuses. I don't want to promote that. But I do want to promote, what I'm saying, an open heart. I do want to promote understanding because sometimes we show up in ways the way that the only way we know how. So some of the tools that we have available to us today, our parents didn't have. A lot of the ways that the methods that we have to move about our healing, the information that we have available to us, our parents didn't have. And so it's kind of unfair to hold everything, just hold on with excessiveness. That's what I mean because you give people the responsibility that they're supposed to have. You make people responsible for what they're people. Everybody has to have accountability in any situation, you and them. So this is not removing their accountability. So I don't want to say that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But even in those instances, if they don't have the proper tools and techniques to be able to maneuver through energies and they only are operating off of their own understanding, then you really being unfair by expecting them because that's an expectation. That's a matter of perspective. And that is your own ego because your journey is not matching theirs. You may not need those same lessons that they needed. So it's kind of unfair for you to judge their journey when you have your own. And maybe a part of their journey, it's not maybe because that's how it works. Whatever their journey was, if you're in their environment, if they're your caretaker, or whatever, usually their journey is going to frame your journey. But it's all for your highest good. And if you see it that way and don't see yourself as a victim and don't see yourself as um, someone who had to go through all of these horrific things or feeling punished all your life, if you see it as shaping who you are so you could be, their experience helped you to not have certain experiences that they had. And if you can see that and embrace that and surrender the belief that they should have had it all together, you could create a better path for yourself. I hope that makes sense. Forgiveness, yes, yes. Forgiveness is key. Not for them. I promise you that forgiveness is not for them. The part, the way, the concept that you do forgive them, that's just a bonus. The real core part of the issue is you forgiving any part of yourself that held on to it, or you forgiving any part of yourself that allowed it to happen, or any part of yourself when you gave your power away, you didn't speak up for yourself. Those are the parts that the forgiveness is really for. Because with that, you can move through life authentically. You can move through life without all of those pressures of feeling like you need to be worried and on guard and defensive all the time. So it's imperative to try to have some understanding to operate in a place of forgiveness, whether you understand what they did or not. That's why I said try to have some, because you're not going to always understand why somebody did something. Everything is not going to always make sense. When it don't make sense, you got to surrender to that. I don't understand why they did what they did, but I'm going to release that and surrender that, because I still understand. Even though I don't understand what made them do why they did it, I do understand that it was meant to teach me something. Even if they did a horrific thing and I can't fathom why someone would do that to someone, I do understand that it was meant to teach me something. Something I really hear sometimes. Yes, yes, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. It doesn't matter whether someone, is a teaching attention seeker. Sometimes, yes, 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 that need for attention is an abandonment wound. It's an abandonment wound all day long. The fact that they do certain things to get the attention on them, that's an abandonment wound. That's a person that's afraid of, if they don't do things a certain way, if everybody's not paying attention to them, they're not important enough. They're not gonna be seen or heard. That's very, very true. So yeah, don't dismiss someone just because you know that they're an attention seeker. You have to understand, you have to gauge and go within and see if that has a place in your life. The fact that they seek attention, does that have a place in your life? Are you really able to help them, and can you help them in a way that does not can you help them in a way that does not affect you in a negative way? Can you assist them in a way that does not devalue you? Yes, they're seeking attention, but can you help them in a way where you don't lose yourself? Because you can cater to someone who's seeking attention and you can wind up losing yourself in the process. Trying so hard, trying to going headstrong, full force in your desire, your passion to help them, because you see them as one who's seeking attention and that they are just hurting on the inside. I've been there. I've done that too. Knew someone was hurting on the inside, and I knew that all their behavior, all this attention seeking they was doing was because of the hurt they felt on the inside, and I wanted to be there for them. And there was nothing wrong with me being there for them, but I got obsessive with it. I got, I started overgiving. I stopped thinking about myself and what I needed. trying to make sure I was there for them. So it's always got to be a balance in whatever you do, because you can't change a person that's emotional and like to give and like to be there for folks. That's a part of who you are. That's a part of your core being. Ain't no sense in you trying to change it, because you're gonna always feel like something is missing if you do. You're gonna feel like you're not living to your full potential because you really want to help people, but you don't stop helping people because you don't get hurt. Because you feel like people won't show up for you. And so you're dimming your light. Now your power, a part of your power is your ability to give. It's a part of your power. So when you take that away, you're giving your power away. You're taking away your power. So the key, if you're one of those type of people who like to be of assist, give, who likes to be a person, if a part of your love language, the way you people love, is acts of service, there is no sense in you trying to stop doing it. The key is for you to discern when and where you give that at. You don't give it to places where you have to overextend yourself and overgive into places where you're looking for validation. Now, as I said earlier, of course, a healthy dose of validation is you hearing someone appreciate what you're doing for them. This is a healthy dose of validation right there. Because I firmly believe a lack of appreciation leads to a lack of motivation. I'm not going to continue to be motivated by someone who's not showing up, or whatever. But I'm not going to stop being a given person. I'm just going to discern that this situation, this person, I can't give to in the same capacity. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you have to turn into a cold-hearted person. But other times, moving on with the conversation, other times when how abandonment wounds show up for us, as I said, it could be when someone left us. It can, that is usually what we think of when we think about being abandoned. We think of someone leaving us. But abandonment won't show up, other times. But when we go through separation, loss, betrayal, grief, those type of things, those, contribute to abandonment wounds as well. So when those type of things happen, like, we having a parent that ain't emotionally available for us, or when we receive love that may have been given to us based off conditions, or when we have to deal with those big emotions alone, or as I said, when somebody has to leave us, when we have to end a situation or something like that with a person. When those things happen, our inner child starts to believe that stuff like, we have those conversations with ourselves. That's why say that, talk to yourself nice, because we have those conversations with ourselves that don't affirm who we are. We have those conversations with ourselves a lot of times that devalue us. We have those conversations like, if I was lovable enough, they would have stayed. Lie. Lie, lie, lie. That you tell yourself. Forcing yourself to believe that you lack something, and that's the reason why this person had to go. And that's not true. Some people are different parts of their journey. Some people have different understandings of what you're trying to give them. Some people are maybe misinterpreting what you're trying to give them. You may be the most lovable person in the world, unbeknownst to you. This person may feel all your love, and that's why they left. But you're thinking they would stay if you were lovable enough. You were too loving. Probably. It's possible. Or we may say, and other times we may say stuff like, every time I fall in love, it always ends. People are always leaving me. That's a thought process that you're going to keep repeating into your reality if you keep thinking like that. Why can't you see those people that you had to walk away from or leave behind as stepping stones, as steps, as a path towards your journey to finding your right person? It's not every time you get love. It's every time when love no longer aligns with you. whatever love they giving you, because you was in that situation because you felt some form of love. I'm sure you felt some form of love in that situation. So you can't say that every time you get love it leaves. No, that's not what it is. When love does no longer align with you, that's when things happen that separates you, whether that is from their end or yours. The love is no longer aligning. That doesn't mean that every time you get love, it's going to leave. If it doesn't align with you, then it's meant to. It's supposed to end. That change is supposed to happen to take you to something better. You shouldn't want to stay in situations or keep continuing to have a love that hurts you or a love that's confusing. That's the last thing you should want. It's almost like I talk to myself to prepare to not speak. Why you seem to mess it up. I think that says Tate. I just want to give you my opinion on why you may be seeming to mess it up in your opinion, in your perspective. I think it's because you're being too hard on yourself. I think you're too in your head when you get ready to express yourself. I think that you worry about how it's coming out. And I don't think you should be as worried about that unless you yourself have found that yourself to be a loose cannon, or that you are discovered that you're not compassionate or empathetic with other people when you speak. If you have found those ways for yourself, I'm not talking about something somebody else said outside of you. I'm talking about when you went within. If you discover that you have these type of tendencies, even if you did, I think you're still too in your head. And that causes you to be unsure of yourself when you get ready to talk or speak your mind about something. And when you're like that, then of course it's not going to come out right. Of course it's going to be misunderstood because you're too in your head. You're really not being authentic because you're trying to think of the best way to say it. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. I've done that. I know from personal experience. I've done that. I'm trying to make sure I say the right thing and then end up saying the wrong thing. And it was because I was too in my head. I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't saying it the way I really felt it. I was saying it the way that I thought they was going to take it. Or the way I thought that they would accept it or hear me, and then they still didn't. So that was just like a bust. So that didn't matter at all either. So it wasn't worth it. So it's worth it to just say it how you feel it. And when you say how you feel it, this will let you know when you're dealing with people who actually love you and when they're dealing with you based off a condition. See, here we go. This is how you would know that. Because if you say how you feel it, if you standing in your authentic truth and you are getting judged for it, or you know what I'm saying, somebody making you feel unseen or unheard or not invalidated because of that, that's not a person that has your best interest at heart. You know how many people who have the harshest tone that say things and they cuss, like a sailor, and the people around them still love them? That's because they know that that's exactly who they are. They know that, even though this person comes across like that, they mean well. That's the way they express themselves. So we can't get caught up in our head worried about we're not going to be loved if we express ourselves the way we feel it. Because if we express ourselves the way we feel it and someone can't take it, can't handle it, those are their own personal issues and their own authenticity. This shouldn't diminish you and make you have to change your approach in the way that you say things to people. Because another way, it's that we go about developing these inner childhood wounds of abandonment issues is that we believe that we must earn people's connection to feel safe. We think we must earn, you know what I'm saying? We got to operate with them a certain way to earn them being able to listen to us, for us to earn being safe enough to say stuff to them. And that's what's going wrong. We don't need to earn a connection with anyone. So that means you don't need to be faking. You don't need to be two faced. You don't need to not be standing in and speaking up for what you truly believe and want to say. Like I said, if you realize that you have been the type of person and you're dealing with if you realize you're the type of person that may come across harsh and you're dealing with someone who you care about and you want to make sure that you express yourself in a way that's delicate to them, and you know that this is not a person that is manipulative, because some people are manipulative. They want you to say stuff soft to them so they don't have to take no accountability. So you got to keep that in mind too. That's when discernment is always necessary. Now, if you're dealing with that you love and you care about, and you don't want to, hurt their feelings or whatever, you usually shouldn't have to say that, I don't mean no harm. You usually shouldn't have to say it, because if they know you, they know you. But if it's someone that you're getting to know, you're trying to develop a rapport with them, you're trying to connect and have a relationship, you shouldn't have to earn it. But you can be transparent enough to say, I don't always know how to say things in the best, best of ways. And I know, me and you are not on the communication level, I may come across harsher than you do. But I want you to understand, what I say, I mean this from my heart. I just don't know how to say it a way that's soft enough for you. And you shouldn't have to say that every time you talk to a person. If a person care about you, they heard you the first time you see it. So you give that disclaimer, and now you should be able to be yourself, walk in your own light, say things the way you feel them, and they should be accepted and received by the people who love you. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time worrying about, whether or not I'm saying it right, because that's how come you're saying it wrong. Just, the way I see it. But I want to talk about now how these wounds, how they develop over time for us. It's because as we grow up, those early experiences that we had, they become like, I guess you could call them like emotional blueprints. So without realizing it, we begin to track situations that mirror those first losses that we experienced. That's why people say, that saying, you attract who you are. That's kind of where that saying comes from. It's not fully, that's not fully a complete, process, but it does contribute to it. It does, because you can attract things for many different reasons. That's not the full reason, but that is a contributing factor. So, as I said, a lot of times we attract those situations, that those situations that created those abandonment wounds for us. And as I stated, we're attracting those situations because that is really, us being divinely guided to healing it. And that's the reason why we're in those situations, as an opportunity to heal that type of abandonment wound that we may have developed from our childhood. So without realizing it, we may, attract, situations that feel like loss, or feel situations that we know unconsciously that is going to end up in a loss. And that's because, unfortunately, sometimes we want pain. And I know that's hard to hear. That was so hard for me to accept. Like, I want pain. What? But pain is what I had came to know. Pain is what I had became to accept, and expect as well. Because subconsciously, all I really wanted was resolution. So when pain would show up, or a situation that could make me feel like, pain would, surface in this situation, that was me, that was a mirror, reflecting back to me of issues that I had not resolved within myself. I hope that made sense. So what I'm basically trying to say is that when I would choose unconsciously choose these situations that were not healthy for me, but I would choose to stay in them even when I got the signs, the clues, the synchronicities that this wasn't in alignment with me. I would stay because I was still trying to resolve that wound that I had developed as a child. I was trying to solve it through them. And that's the wrong way to go about it. So we can we can add on to those abandonment wounds that we've already had that we didn't heal. Whenever that first moment that we felt abandoned, deeply abandoned, and we didn't heal that, we give space for those wounds to grow through stuff like, having repeated breakups, having relationships that, we're dealing with people who don't reciprocate the same feelings that we do. We can we give space when we deal with people who are emotionally available. That's partners and friends and family members, the whole nine. When we're dealing with folks that's emotionally available, that don't, who are emotionally detached, who don't take our emotions into consideration, we are giving space for that abandonment wound that resides in us. We're giving space for it to grow. Sometimes it's us being that people pleaser, overgiving, in hopes that you know we'll be chosen, we'll be seen as valuable to this person. That's another breeding ground for those abandonment wounds to grow and fester. We self sabotage our connections, with future people because we are always on the defense. We can't allow things to grow and change, in a way that's best for everybody involved. So we self sabotage. We do stuff like we want to detach quickly. I'm gonna break up with you before you break up with me. Or as soon as we feel a little bit of disinterest, as soon as somebody do something, we don't like, here we go, ready to blow up the spot. Other times, we just living in paranoia and panic and anxiety. As soon as we feel like somebody's pulling away. Oh, he didn't call me today. Oh my God, everything's going wrong. Oh, it's been 3 hours since I heard from her. Oh my God, what's happening here? All of that is the breeding grounds for those abandonment wounds that are not healed, those unhealed wounds. That's the breeding ground for them to keep growing, for to take up more space in your life. Because these wounds, they either teach us to cling or to shut down. One of the two. That's what we normally do. We're gonna cling on too tight, be smart or whatever, or we're gonna shut down. Forget it. Get numb. But both of these are just protective and defensive strategies that is really just rooted in our fear of loss. So we might go through daily life, acting like, being having a fear of rejection, or just being in fear that we are doing too much or we're being too much. We go through our daily life, people pleasing, like I said, over explaining ourselves to keep the peace. Don't want no confrontation. Oh no. That's an abandonment wound. That's you not wanting to take responsibility for yourself and what's hurting you and what's harming you. You got difficulties trusting and opening up to people. That's an abandonment wound too. Oh, ain't nobody gonna do right here. Everybody messed up. Everybody messed up. You ain't no good women out here. Ain't no good men out here. That's so you can stay in a place of not having to open up and be vulnerable and put yourself out there to receive love because you're so used to the pain. Like I said, we oftentimes be choosing those unavailable people, living in the anxiety of when people don't show up for us when we want them to and how we want them to. because we're already feeling unworthy of a love that feels secure. Because we made a decision that first time when things didn't feel secure, we were going to protect ourselves. But a lot of times, like I said, we protect ourselves in an excessive way, in a way that does not serve us, in a way that's not healthy, in a way that's not of open heartedness. And in them instances, them paranoid instances, them instances where those abandonment wounds are real high. You got many of them. You do many of these different things that I've named. Fear, rejection, all those different type of things. If you do many of those, oh my goodness, you, if you be honest with yourself, you'll look around and actually notice that you are scanning the people that you are around for evidence that they doing you wrong or finna leave you. I remember when I realized that there was an abandonment wound, that part, of me that was doing it. When I realized it, is when I realized my addiction to the ID channel. Not saying anything bad about the ID channel. If you watch the ID channel, you're addicted to it. Hey, that's you. That's you. But I realized that my addiction to the ID channel was a reflection of how I saw everybody in my life as a prime suspect. See, this kind of deep healing work I do. I look at what I'm doing, how I'm doing, how I operate. It's kind of deep healing work I do. And I encourage you all to do the same because nothing is a coincidence. Everything is connected. You just got to figure out the way that it is. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm sorry I didn't see your message in the beginning. I appreciate you, Tate. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm glad you found some information that was helpful here. I'm sorry I missed you if you come back to the live later on. I'm sorry I missed your message before you left. I was just flowing with the message, but I hope you understand. And thank you for the like and subscribe. Now, we're going to move on to how we heal these wounds. Since we have talked about the wounds and what they look like and how they show up for us and how we may be, operating and showing up, our behaviors may be reflecting those wounds. I want to talk about how we can heal them. Because I want to first of all say that healing is not about pretending the wound is not there. That's not what it is. You got to acknowledge the wounds. You got to embrace them. You got to own the wounds. They're yours. They're a part of you. They're shaping you. So you got to embrace them. So it's not about you pretending that the wound doesn't exist. This is about reparenting yourself. Reparenting that part of you that was left behind. Because as I stated, this is a childhood wound. So you got to go back to your childhood and reparent yourself for you have to give yourself the lack of direction that someone else may not have been equipped to give you. And I say may not have been equipped to give you because we're not placing blame. We're not saying what somebody should have done. We're being open hearted enough to know that they may not have been equipped with the tools necessary to fulfill this need of mine. So I want to give us some key phrases, some things that we can do, some practical steps that we can do to heal these wounds. And I first want us to start by acknowledging the wound. Because like I said, we're not about to pretend that it's not there. Nope, it's not the route. We're going to acknowledge that wound. We're going to stop minimizing that pain. And one of the things that we can do for ourselves with this wound is to say to ourselves, that self-talk is always important. When that wound is triggered, we can say, yes, I was hurt. I was left. And it mattered. Because all of that is true. It mattered to you. Whatever happened mattered. And there's value in that because it's yours. Us giving a name to that wound, acknowledging that wound, this is the first step in the process of unburdening it. This is how we release the burden that this wound carries for us. This is the first step. Giving a name, acknowledging, say, yeah, it hurt me. And it matters. The fact that it hurt me, it matters. Don't tell yourself that it don't matter or you shouldn't be hurt about it. Don't do any of that. It mattered to you. You were hurt. Own that. Next thing I want you, my collective, to do is to reconnect with your inner child. I want you to go back to that little version of you as far back as you can remember. And what I did was I went back to a traumatic experience when I did this method. I went back to a traumatic time, to that little me. That little me that wanted to be chosen and seen. I went back to her. I placed a hand over my heart. I closed my eyes and I imagined that I was seeing her and I was there in the room with her, beside her. I hugged her. I kissed her. And I told her I would never leave her. I told her I am here now. And my love, you don't have to earn it. I started writing letters, writing poems. Poems, to my younger self. Poems that I wish that my younger self, because I like to read, I love poetry. Poems that I wish that my younger self would have had available. I need to get back more to sharing that type of content with you all. But this was something that I was using to, like I said, to speak to my younger self, and it was helping me to create a bridge. It was helping me to connect. It helped me to, have a safety net, a place of safety, to build a safe space for my younger self from the inside. Because my younger self is still in there. So I needed a safe space for her to be able to feel like, she was chosen, that she mattered to someone. And so I let her know that it was me. She mattered to me. We also have to regulate our nervous system. Those things we've been through, they threw our nervous system out whack. Maybe one day I'll talk about, can do more conversations on connecting the body to, the things that happen in us, outside our external reality, how those things affect, the things that happen in our body. Maybe sometime soon I'll do conversation on that. But we have to understand that abandonment triggers, they are based, they're body based. They reside inside our body, those triggers. So when we feel that panic of being left, we have to pause and breathe. That breath work is important. That pause to get yourself together, to center yourself, that is important. We can, just for starters, you can inhale and hold it for 4, and you can exhale it for 6. This is your 10. This is you completing an inner cycle. Symbolically, of course. Spiritually. You can do grounding exercises. Oh, wait, this wasn't that reading. That's in the angel guidance message where I talked about the birth work. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out. I haven't uploaded it yet. Maybe I'll upload it tomorrow or I might try to do it later on, but it might not upload until tomorrow if I do it later on. But make sure you check out that reading because I talked about breath work and you centering yourself and you bringing yourself back to the present moment. I talked about, using textures to bring yourself, feeling your hand and feeling things that's around you, using texture to bring yourself back to the present moment to get yourself out of your head. So I talked about that in that reading. So make sure you check it out. But you can use, your feet. You can get bare feet. You can walk outside in the grass, not the concrete. Go out, get on some earth, some pure earth, and ground yourself. You can hug a tree, which is my favorite. You can take a walk. You can just go sit outside in nature. You can let the sun just, beam on your skin. There are plenty of things that you can do to ground yourself using the God-given, nature that we have around us. And most importantly, you have to remind yourself that this is memory. What you're thinking about, that stuff, more than likely that's a memory. It already happened. So you really and truly aren't in any current danger. So you can really give yourself the chance, the opportunity to be at peace, to find you some serenity. Because there's no present moment danger going on. And it's important that you rebuild a secure connection to yourself. Instead of seeking that external existence, you gotta reassure yourself. And you can begin that process by offering yourself some consistency. You can be consistent in hyping yourself up. You be consistent in valuing yourself. It's placing value in the things that you do for yourself. If today you ate a salad and you haven't ate a salad in a while, today you decided to eat a salad and just be healthy. That is something that you could do to reassure yourself. To say, I'm doing good things for myself. I don't always be making bad choices. Sometimes I step out there and I just have a healthy day. And in that, it'll grow. If you can be consistent in reassuring yourself and hyping yourself up, it'll grow. You can also make sure you keep your own promises to yourself. So if you set a boundary, if you promise something, if you promise yourself something, keep that promise. Stand 10 toes down on it. Stand on business when it comes to the promises that you have made to yourself. Your emotions, you give them your own validation. You don't need nobody else to tell you or validate you, but when it comes to your emotions, your emotions matter. They matter to you. If they don't matter to nobody else, they matter to you. So validate them. Your emotions have purpose. You just find the purpose that your emotions are serving for you on this particular situation, whatever it may be. Make sure you do them daily check-ins with yourself. Check in with yourself and ask yourself how you feeling. The mental health checks, check in. I believe in it. Check in with yourself and be honest with yourself about how you are feeling in any particular moment. How am I feeling today? Why am I feeling this today? What do I need right now to make me feel safe? Because each time you do that, each one of those acts, it works as a way of honoring you, and it rewires the pattern, that old pattern of that negative self-talk that you had with yourself. It rewires that. It places that in a healthier place. So I want us all to start viewing love not as something to chase, but as something to receive. And we do that by understanding that the more that we nurture our own emotional safety from within, the less that we fear someone else is leaving us. Because the main thing is that no matter who leaves, we're never alone because we've never left ourselves. So, my collective, I want to leave us all, with the information before I end this live. I've been on almost an hour, and I think I have pretty much covered all the information that I can think of on this topic in hope that someone receives something informative, something that can help them and assist them. And I hope that someone can use this information to heal any issues around any abandonment wounds that they have for themselves. Because this work is imperative, the wounding, the inner healing, that soul work that we have to do. That is how we get in alignment. That is how we stay true and authentic towards the path that we really, really want. Is that by doing the work that's necessary so we can show up? Because we, as they always say, your inner world reflects your outer world. So if you get your inner world intact, if you do the necessary healing for what's on the inside of you, you can make your outside of the world show up a whole lot better. It's not going to show up, without any problems or trials or tribulations, because that's not a part of the design. The design is for you to go through things so you can continue to grow. But what we want to focus on here is getting that inner world stronger, so that when things happen on our outside world, in our reality, navigate through those energies, with more confidence. But we don't have to feel like we're in stagnancy. We don't feel stuck. We don't have to feel like we're frozen and don't know what to do. We're wrapped up in confusion. We don't have to, continue any reckless behaviors or triggers or any of that. When we understand and we do the inner work that is needed, so we can, make the journey show up for us the way that we feel or want to feel on the inside. Because either way, if your inside is turmoil, that's how your outside world gonna show up. So you can't fake it. There's no faking it here. So you got to do the work. The work is imperative so it can show up. It can reflect. It's our reflections. So in closing, my collective, my royal butterflies, I want us to know that abandonment, anytime we've been left or felt unheard or unseen or unworthy, I want us to know that that's temporary. It's not a life sentence. That doesn't have to be a life sentence. That doesn't have to be, who we are. It's an experience. That abandonment, it's like a sacred summons. It's like spiritual court. It's like a sacred summons for us to return back to ourselves, our authenticity. I love that word because it's true. So every time someone is left, whether you want to believe it or not, but it'll be better for you if you was to believe it, in my opinion. You don't have to take my advice. It's my opinion. But every time someone left you, they unknowingly pushed you towards your own path. They unknowingly pushed you towards you embracing your full self. The version of you that feared being unchosen, that part of you learning to realize every time they left you. That part of you trains you to realize, if you allow it, that I was never, never unworthy. I was simply unseen by them. And as I stated, anyone who doesn't see you for who you are and what you have to offer, they do not give you the space. They do not support. They will not be capable of supporting you living in the best version of yourself. So I want you, my collective, my royal butterflies, I want you to see yourself. Now I want you to stay. I want you to take that deep breath and whisper. Whisper this to yourself. I choose me, and I will never leave me again. And if you say that to yourself and you believe it, I assure you, you will feel a powerful shift in who you are and where you're headed. If you all have appreciated these messages for today, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Because as always, it's truly been an honor and a pleasure. Because my healing is your healing, and your healing is mine. So let's transform together. Welcome to your metamorphosis, butterflies. And until next time, you all have a blessed, loved, and safe rest of your day.